Okay, Becky Reid, will you tell us about a product that you enjoy?
Oh, sure. My favorite one right now, I think, is the Turmeric Boost. And it is for all kinds of inflammation. And just about anything that we have begins with inflammation, whether it's a headache, backache, whatever. Anyway, I just got it because it was a fairly new product and I had not used it. So I just ordered it. And I give myself and my husband vitamins every day, handful of them. And he's like, I can't tell any difference. I can't tell any difference. And when we started adding this, he's had back trouble for a long time. And he's even had just a minor surgery on his back, a disc that needed to be shaved down because it was on his nerve. And that's been 5 years ago. But he still has some back pain if we drive a lot, things like that, sit a lot, whatever. And he doesn't have that anymore since we've been taking just one a day is all we're taking right now. But I've been reading more about it and just in general, just general information. And I had heard that it would help a headache. Well, I have headaches occasionally, so the last time I had a headache, I had my one that day, but I came in and took another one, and my headache went away. So that was good. And it was a sinus headache because I can feel it. I know that. But what's good about Shackley Turmeric Boost is that it's made from not from turmeric root, but from the extract. And that makes it much more powerful. Yeah. And it says in the book that the kind that you get just over the counter or even in health food store might have 3 to 5% of the curcuminoids in it, and Shackley has 95%. And so, that's a big difference. And I think that's why I know some people on turmeric that is not Shackley, and I've talked to them about this, and I was like, well, look at ours, look at the difference. But if you're still going to take what you got, you're going to have to take 3 or 4 of them because it's not equal to the one that we have,
Yeah. Good.
So it works really well. I like it.
I'm glad to hear that story. That sort of reminded me when it first came out. Well, I never bought turmeric anywhere else, but I had 2 different people say, the first one said, oh no, I'm eating the spice. I'm taking a teaspoon. And I didn't say much about that because I thought, well, that might be questionable. but her sister had been buying turmeric somewhere, and her sister had such a response from changing to the Shackley brand that she actually taught this one that was using a teaspoon of spice. And so they both now just say, what a difference. And so it's good to have the comparison. Thank you for bringing that up about what is really different with Turmeric Boost. And so,
one other thing, I had a customer who looked at ours and she was amazed. She said she had been told that in addition to turmeric, she would need the black pepper extract, and she would buy that separate. And she was excited when she looked in the catalog and saw that ours has that in it. So you don't have to see. I didn't know anything about that because Shackley didn't have turmeric, and I hadn't looked into it. But when ours came out,
good point. Yeah. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, let's see. Jim, how about sharing your story with us?
Okay. Well, last week I told you that there were 4 women that had a big impact on my life. And so I want to tell you about the second one this time. And her name was Becky Jones. Becky Jones had breast cancer, and her mother started helping her out and nursing her back to health. And she did that by going out into the yard and things and collecting greens and stuff. And I remember Becky Jones talking about how bitter dandelion greens were. But Becky eventually recovered from her breast cancer. And she had, and you know how it is after you recover from something like that, you've always got a concern in your mind that you want to prevent it. You don't want it to ever come back again. And Becky Jones chose to use Shackley as her prevention from ever having to suffer with breast cancer again. And that stuck with me because it was a life and death decision that she was making. So when somebody's making a decision that has to do with life and death, it really stands out to me. And Shackley has quite a few of those. Like, for instance, the astronauts, space shuttle astronauts who were passing out as they re-entered the Earth's atmosphere. NASA came to Shackley and said, can you help us with this? And Shackley developed what they call AstroAid, which is very similar to what we have in the performance. Yeah. And then you have some other things like when the gentleman decided he was going to go solo and bobsled to the, was it to the South Pole or to the North?
Yeah, north and south, actually.
Okay. Okay. He chose that his nutrition was going to be from Shackley. Now that's a life or death decision because you're out there just by yourself and some dogs. And I don't know if you've ever been lost in a deserted place, but it is scary. I know one time I was in Nepal and hiking through the mountains in Nepal, and I was with a group of people, but it started to snow. And two of us decided that we would hike back down the trail. We had gotten to where we were going to stay for the night. And two of us decided that we would hike back down the trail a little bit and just see the snow, basically. And so we did. And when we got a little ways away, we got lost. And we didn't know which way to go because everywhere we looked was white. And that's kind of scary, you know, when you're out in an area where a snow leopard could jump on you at any time. So it was a life and death decisions are very crucial, and they stand out in my mind. So we had something that happened to us that was a life and death decision, a life and death kind of time. Our oldest daughter, when she was 14 years old, gained 20 pounds in about 5 days. And so her legs started swelling and just kept swelling. And so I was out of town at a training class, and my wife called and said, I'm taking Abby to the emergency room. You know, this swelling has just gotten worse and worse. And as it turned out, Abby had something called nephrotic syndrome, which is, just to simplify it, the liquid starts leaking out of your blood. And that's the reason she was swelling. Well, what happens when that happens is that your blood gets really thick because it's lost the fluid out of it, a lot of the fluid out of it. And her cholesterol shot up over 700. And the danger of this is that a blood clot, you know, and a blood clot can be fatal. So it's a long story and I won't go into all of it, but I will say this, that we chose, along with working with the doctors, I'm sorry, I had a gnat. Along with working with the doctors, we chose to use Shackley to rebuild her health, to help her detoxify. And somebody said something earlier about inflammation. We put her on an anti-inflammatory diet and use the anti-inflammatory supplementation to restore her health. And at that age, when you get nephrotic syndrome at that age, you usually end up having to get a kidney transplant. And so we were able to avoid that. She went into remission, and it came back a time or two. And so that was scary too, but we kept working to improve her health, and it went completely into remission. Now she is 27, I think. and I've been married for a couple of years. And so that worked out. But it was because of that my early experience with Becky Jones, who put her faith, her life in put her faith in Shackley to help support her health when it was a life and death decision, that stuck with me and helped us to make the decision that we would do something similar with Abby, rather than putting on her on chemotherapy, which is what the treatment was that they wanted to put her on. So that's my story in short form.
Wow, that is really a story. Thank you so much for sharing that. It really is. So, stop there.